Hey everyone, I'm back, and today we're going to be talking about Friday the 13th, the original. And this movie came out in 1980, and this movie is pretty iconic, and I know there's plenty of people who enjoy this movie, and it's pretty much what really popularized slasher movies, I would say. Even though there are slasher movies that came out before this film, I would say this is where they really started to become spammed. Like in the 80s, we would just get slasher movie after slasher movie after slasher movie. And I guess Friday the 13th is pretty much responsible for all of that. Even if there are slasher movies that came out before it, like Halloween, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or to some extent Psycho. Some people call it a slasher movie. I don't know if I would categorize it in that, I guess, subgenre, if you want to call it that. This movie, basically the story is you have a bunch of camp counselors who go to Camp Crystal Lake, and there's a zombie called Jason Voorhees, and he kills them. And the reason he kills them is because he drowned as a little boy, and the camp counselors weren't paying attention to him when that happened, and he takes his revenge against all these people, and that's the premise for Friday the 13th. It's goofy and kind of lame. I don't know. Like, I'm not a fan of this movie. I just feel as though it would have been better as a short film, because the movie doesn't really explore anything interesting, and it doesn't have any of the elements that those previous slasher movies had. I'm going to compare it to Halloween, because I feel as though they're very similar in terms of, like, this movie being inspired by Halloween. I see all of the inspirations and what it was trying to do, and like the music, it was trying to have like really intense music, or be something like a bit newer, like be more like stuck in its time, and that's what makes it kind of lame to me. And a lot of people are going to disagree with me hard on this, but I really do not like the music for this movie. I think it dragged the movie down a lot. And that's not just because it's used in so many moments where it's inappropriate to use it, but also on its own, I don't think it's that great. There's nothing about it that makes me excited to get into this world. There's nothing about it that makes me feel tense or any emotions. It's just kind of annoying whenever I hear it. And the only reason I remember it is because pop culture has kind of like spammed it to death. And now it's just like stuck in my brain. This. That's one thing that I really don't like about the movie. And there's some really bad performances in this movie. Like, our main character, without giving anything away, there were points in the movie where she was supposed to be scared or crying, but she just looked like she was laughing, and I never bought her as her character. And all of the characters in this movie are super, super weak, and they have like almost nothing to them, and it's just trying to have the bare amount of what you would need to make a movie, and it does that, and in the end it does not pay off, because there's nothing about it that makes me feel as though I should care or like want to see more of certain characters. It's just, okay, boring characters, cut to other boring characters. Here are more boring characters, cut to even more boring characters. I was never scared once while watching this movie. I never felt as though there was one successful moment when it came to the horror, and it just kind of failed in every department that it was trying to go for. And the only things that I kind of like about it were some of the side characters that were really weird and barely had any screen time, and they were the best part of the movie, and the kills were entertaining. Once we got to the second half of the movie, that's where I found the film to be absolutely dull, and there was nothing entertaining about it, and I was struggling to stay awake, and this movie offered me basically nothing. And I kind of regret watching this movie. I've seen this movie at least twice already, and both times I did not like it. And the first time I watched this movie, a quick side story. The first time I watched this movie was when I was in my sophomore year of high school, and it was like October 31st or something, and my cat, he was sleeping on my lap, and I was kind of just stuck watching these movies because they were just on TV, and I was like, oh, Friday the 13th, I'll finally get to see it, and I watched it. I was like, okay, that was a movie. And I didn't just watch the first one. I watched the first three Friday the 13th movies, and they just didn't stand out as anything special. And by the way, I sat there with a full, like, 4.5 hours without getting up because I was just enjoying a cat being on my lap. And that was like the best part of my experience, was just a cat was on my lap, and there was nothing else about those three movies that engaged me or scared me. And they were movies that happened, and I had basically no reason to go back to them. And the second time I watched it, the original was like on TV, where I don't even remember why I was watching it, but I watched it a second time. I was like, okay, that was nothing special. And rewatching it for a third time, I think I like it less now because I'm more aware of what horror movies are and what I would want from a horror movie. And this film just has none of that, and it's disappointing. It's dated. It's stuck in its time period, and there's nothing about it that makes me want to come back to it. And with all that being said, I'm going to give Friday the 13th, the original, a 3 out of 10. And for anyone who's curious which movie I like better, this one or the remake, I think I like the remake slightly better. I feel like I was more entertained by that movie, even though I don't really remember much about it, but I feel like I was more entertained by it, which is why it's a little bit better for me, but not by a lot. Also, you might have noticed that me uploading this review is on a 13th of October, but it is a Thursday the 13th, not a Friday the 13th. Well, the reason why that happened is because I would have to wait an entire year for that to happen, and I do not have the patience to wait that long to talk about this movie. And that's why I am not doing it on a Friday the 13th, but rather a Thursday the 13th. So as sad as that is, and how much that is a gigantic missed opportunity, unfortunately this is going to have to do. Thank you for watching my videos as always. If you enjoyed this review, be sure to leave a like and comment down below you thought Friday the 13th, the original, and my social media links, they will all be in the description, so follow me there. And last but not least, subscribe to be a part of Foley Nation, and I'll see when I get my next review up, and that's gonna be for a movie that's not a horror movie that I just saw recently in theaters, and that is Bullet Train. So look forward to that, but until I get that up, thank you for watching and have a great day.